From 1990s junk wax to the 1948 Jackie Robinson rookie and everything in between, we're telling you which cards are the most overrated and underrated in the sports card hobby and why. Hello, sports card investors, and welcome to another episode of Cards on the Table. And gentlemen, it is always fun to sit here and tell both of you why you are wrong. And I'm going to be doing that in just a minute because today we are about to have one of the age-old debates. What cards, going through the history of sports cards, which ones are the most underrated and which ones are the most overrated? I know you guys have some strong opinions which are incorrect, and I have some strong opinions that are correct, so we are going to get into that. But before we do, I just need to let everybody know that next Sunday night, not this Sunday, but next Sunday night, the biggest announcement in the history of Sports Card Investor is coming on this YouTube channel. You guys ready for that?
It's a claim.
It's a big one.
It's a big
It's
pump.
a big one.
It's a big
It's a
claim.
big one. All right, it's a big one. All right, but let's get to our topic at hand today. Doug, tell me, Doug, as you go through the history of sports cards, what card or cards stand out to you as the most overrated and the most underrated? Let's get started.
Well, as much as I would like to talk about how much I don't like jambalaya, I've gone that path before. People in the comments got really mad. I don't like the same cards as them. I'm so sorry. But it's very ugly. And I said the same thing about That's Jam. Also very ugly. And the name is nonsensical. That doesn't mean anything. But we've done that before. I've got an interesting one I want to talk about. And it's actually a card I like. But Dunkin' Go Nuts.
Oh, you're dunking on Dunkin' Go Nuts?
Not
in this
exactly,
show?
but here's
It's more
the thing.
like Doug is going nuts.
Here's the thing. If they made a card like that today with obvious corporate branding, if they made some sort of Starbucks card today, people would hate it. They would trash the manufacturer for being a corporate sellout. Nobody would want the card. And it's acetate. No one likes acetate anymore.
I do.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have talked about Clearly Donruss. We have a little bit of a soft spot for it, but it's not popular. It doesn't sell well. If they made an acetate Starbucks card or insert corporate sponsor here, people would hate it. And there's no reason they should like Dunkin' Donuts under those same parameters, but it's just the nostalgia factor.
By the way, do you know they made that card without Dunkin' Donuts permission?
Yes, I
and
read
then
about
Dunkin'
that.
Donuts sent them a cease and desist
Yes.
letter, and that's why they never made it again.
Yeah.
So they just made it. Today you get your butt suit off. I don't think you
Yeah.
can do that anymore. Okay, so that's overrated. I
Sure.
completely disagree, but what is your underrated?
What's underrated is, in general, 90s junk wax.
Okay.
And I'm talking about purely from an aesthetic standpoint. Obviously, it's not very investable, but just because a card is rare or they didn't make a whole bunch of them doesn't make it cool. And just because they made a million of them doesn't make it uncool. There's so many cards throughout the 90s. I really like Provision. I really like things like Diamond Kings. And I've got a bunch of Bo Jackson stuff like the Bow Breaker card or Master Blaster or Rifleman. Those are all very cool cards. And there's a million of them you can buy for $1, but it doesn't make them not cool.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm good with those picks. I'm okay with that. What's interesting is my overrated, I also went for a 90s card, an iconic 90s card as well that actually might make more people upset out there than not. I think precious metal gems are overrated. And I say that only because as somebody, I know it's got all the lineage and the history, and there's so many people out there right now that are big 90s collectors that are going, you've lost your damn mind. But what I will say from somebody who didn't collect in the late 90s, because my era of collecting as a kid was the 80s and the early 90s. I missed the late 90s. I was too busy, chasing girls around in college to pay attention to cards in the late 90s. And when I go back and look at that era now, and I look at all of these inserts, there are so many inserts from the 90s that are also very rare, that are much more attractive, visually attractive than those precious metal gems. I mean, my personal favorite is the 1998 Skybox, the molten metal cards, the titaniums. Those are more rare than the PMGs.
Those are awesome.
And in my opinion, they're a better looking card. How about the 1997 Hoops High Voltage 500 cards?
Love that card.
Those are really, really good looking cards. I also like the Platinum Portraits from 97. There's so many different inserts from that time period and special prints that are close to as rare, or in some cases more rare, and are better looking than precious metal gems. On the underrated, I'm going to go with the 1948 Leaf Jackie Robinson card because of his incredible significance in the sports card hobby and beyond the sports card hobby especially. And I'm going with that 1984 Star Michael Jordan number 101 card. It doesn't get enough love compared to its 86 Fleer counterparts, We did a great episode on the Jeff Wilson Show recently about the importance of the 84 Star Jordan. Debunked so many myths about that card.
Smells like a pump and dump to me.
Underrated. Teapot, how about you?
You've left me with 25 seconds.
We're going to add more time. Give him an extra minute.
The overrated, with a caveat, is the 1948 Jackie Robinson Leaf.
Oh, but what?
And the reason I'm saying that is I like that set. The picture of Jackie on that looks weird to me. It just looks like his head crunched over. Aesthetically, it doesn't stand out to me. I like the Jackie Robinson 52 and 53 tops significantly more than that
52
card.
tops is a nice
So if
card.
I were just collecting these, not a investability, I understand it's his rookie card. You can get a PSA 6 53 tops and SGC 2 52 tops for the same price as a PSA 2 Leaf. And I would rather have those two cards for my own PC. Out of order, I don't completely disagree with your take on PMGs, except that I do like the greens and the reds. I like the scopes and the golds more. I like those ones more. Over time, they've appealed to me more. Anything scope is my favorite prismatic effect. And my underrated is also from 1948, is Bowman George Mikan. I had that card ranked as the 6th most iconic card of all time on my PWCC Top 100 rating. It came in at 28th with all the voters. I think it's a big mistake. It was the first year of Bowman, the first year of basketball cards, and Mikan was the most iconic player. Hall of Fame, multi-year All-Star, 3-time scoring leader. It's a great card. That's the one I'm going with.
Okay.
Underrated.
I can buy into that one. Let us know in the comments what you think. Who's right, who's wrong, and more importantly, what cards do you think are overrated and underrated? Let us know in the comments. One thing we can all agree on, gentlemen, is there are certain cards on pristineauction.com right now that are not underrated. One of those cards is Justin Herbert's 2020 limited rookie jersey auto, but it's the 2023 black box 1 of 1. It's a beautiful card. It's on Pristine Auction right now. Doug, what do you have your eye on?
I'm looking at a 2020 Prism Draft Picks Joe Burrow rookie auto, and it's a Hyper Prism out of 75. It's probably the cheapest I can find a decent Burrow auto right now, and now's a decent time to get on Burrow. People little iffy about his first couple of games and his calf injury, whatever, I don't care. I'll go after that.
I agree. It was good to see him get the win the other night. How about you, Teapot?
Absolutely stunning looking Michael Jordan, 2005-06, Sweet Shot Signature Shots, PSA 10. Awesome, awesome card. Check it out.
There you go. All of these cards are for sale right now on pristineauction.com. And when you register at pristineauction.com, use code SCI when you register. And we're going to hook you up with $10 in your account for free to use towards your first purchase of these or any of their thousands of cards at auction. Okay, data dive this last week on the Market Movers channel, Teapot. You dove into one specific set that you felt was highly underrated, a set that you feel doesn't get enough attention in the hobby, but a set that you have strong feelings about. We're going to talk about that, but then we're gonna play a little game that goes along with that. Let's first of all explain this set here.
It's a Luminance football. It's always one of my favorites. We've obviously had Luminance for basketball inserted into Chronicles, and it's kind of the Stadium Club photogenic type thing for football, which they put photogenic football into Chronicles, so they're sort of playing that game. I think this product should be marketed more. It's fantastic photography. There are very few products where I look at all the base images and I go, yes, 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 and then so many of the inserts tick the boxes. Two that stand out in particular, and this is the little game, right, is the insert Moments and the insert Unforgettable, and it's just great photos, and then they'll have the little captions on the back. You've got Mahomes coming out of the tunnel at the Super Bowl, Hurts diving over the goal line, Butker kicking it through for the victory in the Super Bowl, all those kinds of things. So we thought it'd be a little bit fun to think what moments from the first 3 weeks this year might make it into Luminance next year if Panini had the rights to make Luminance again.
We'll see if they
which
still
they
do.
don't. I've got 3 of them for you, okay?
Okay, let's go. What
The
are your
first one,
moments?
how about Kadarius Toney, a Gator, with the ball coming right into his mitts just before a pick 6, leading to a Lions victory on the road in week 1. How about Brian
moments?
Branch absolutely leveling Bijan Robinson, who you were already calling the best running back in the NFL last week before only going for 30 yards. And the last one, how about a landscape version of Justin Fields missing 3 wide open receivers before getting sacked?
Brutal.
On road to 0-3 with a QB rating of just 21 through 3 games.
I went for positive.
That was
he's just
super
going for
negative.
dirt here.
Oh.
This is just dirt here.
The
All right,
rivalries
Doug,
are on.
what moments would you create cards out of so far in this NFL season?
Obviously, we have a pretty short sample size to work with, only 3 weeks in. And by the way, I agree
Plenty of
about
moments.
Luminance overall. I like Luminance.
great.
Yeah, it is a great
If
product.
not for the college jerseys,
Yeah.
those on-card autos
Agreed.
and the photography. Anyway, my favorite moment so far, probably the Tua no-look shovel pass en route to
Oh,
a
that was
50-point
good.
blowout.
That was sick.
There could be
That
a
was good.
really cool photo of that from a landscape perspective. There is, do you remember the overhead shot of Bijan Robinson against the
Yes.
Panthers juking everybody?
That was
Be a
awesome.
really great overhead of just a Panthers player flying by him.
Yep.
There's the Garrett Wilson bobble one-handed catch against the Bills that I think could be pretty cool. And I'm sure we could probably find a Travis Kelce recent image from a game that just happened with a special guest that might, make some noise.
Might make the card values explode.
Yeah.
Yes, by the way, I'm going to agree with you on this last one. I've got this one on my list. Attention, Topps and Panini. If you want to 10x the number of collectors and bring new people into the hobby, how about some Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift dual cards going out right now? I think that might actually get it done. We might achieve our goal of 10xing the hobby if we're able to pull that off. So how about an event with Taylor Swift? Who would you rather go see? The event that I got to go to this last week with Wemby, where I got to meet Wemby one-on-one, that was a lot of fun. Or would you rather go see Swiftie and get to meet her one-on-one? Who would you pick?
Wemby.
Who would you pick?
Wemby.
I mean, it was fun to meet Wemby, but I might give up Wemby for a little Swiftie. I don't know. Moment of the year in all of football, without question, Ricky Pearsall, Florida Gators, Jumpman catch, greatest catch of all time. Any level of football in history, Ricky
Wow.
Pearsall, Florida Gators this last weekend. There's no question. You know, by the way, Doug, even as a Kentucky fan, you got to say that was a catch.
Yeah, it was.
It was a catch.
Yeah.
It was a catch. I would make cards of the scoreboard of the 3 Dolphins games, and then I would put the market movers graph of Tua's cards going up. I would do the same with the Eagles games, and we could watch Jalen Hurts' card, because those are 2 guys I was buying in the offseason, so I'm pretty happy about that. Not as happy about some of my other offseason purchases, but happy about Jalen Hurts and Tua, so I'm going to make cards out of them. If we're going to go negative, I guess you go Josh Allen in that first game with the 4 turnovers.
Oh, wow.
You know, he's rebounded, but that first game was a little bit
Maybe
rough
just Aaron
there.
Rodgers'
That's
Achilles
nothing
doing-
special for him.
Yeah.
He turns
Oh,
it
God.
over a lot.
He does turn it over a lot, but man, he lost that first game. That was a rough start to the season. Glad to see the Bills
awesome.
rebound from there. All right, guys, we got a lot more to talk about today. We got some more talk about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, and Travis Kelce's card prices. Also need to talk about some of the Nationals' plans for the future right after this. Check out that brand new sales history feature in Market Movers. Just go to sportscardinvestor.com and click Market Movers in the main menu bar. Okay, guys, here we go. Let's talk about what has happened with the Travis Kelce market, because there's a couple of different data points here to note, which is kind of interesting. Travis Kelce's jersey sales, since he was spotted this last weekend with Taylor Swift, you had her at the game, Travis Kelce's jersey sales have gone bananas. They have gone up by 400% in terms of sales volume, right? His cards have gone up some, but they haven't exactly reacted in the same way. We've seen a 72% increase in volume, so that is actually definitely a rise in volume. The prices have moved a little bit, but we haven't seen this just overarching spike in Travis Kelce's cards the same way you have in his Instagram followers and his jersey sales and all of these other things. Which kind of brings it together an interesting point. How much does the sports card hobby actually care about tie-ins to pop culture and media? Because I've kind of observed that some of the big name guys like Shaq or the Manning brothers, who you see on a lot of kind of media type situations, it doesn't seem to be helping their card prices very much. Does this surprise you, Teapot, or is there more of a correlation there that we as sports card investors need to be thinking about in the future?
I think when it just comes down to it, I was just thinking about myself, and very little, if any, entertainment type stuff or off the field stuff impacts my card purchasing decisions. I think most people collecting sports cards just look at on the field performance, stats. What have you done for me lately? And then what did you do over your career? So, even though I think watching Chuck and Shaq is hilarious and usually they're really funny, it doesn't make me go, I want to go buy a bunch of their cards. It's almost like I'm thinking of them in two different roles. And that's when they played basketball, and this is when they entertain me. And I don't gravitate toward that as much. I have a few entertainment style. I have a Mozart card that's real old. I have some Bing Crosby stuff, artists, musicians that I like listening to, but I don't have a lot of other entertainment stuff, and I just don't generally gravitate toward that with sports cards.
So if there were Shaquille O'Neal and Charles Barkley in studio TNT cards, would that interest you at all? If you go in the pop culture card direction?
Maybe if it was when Shaq ate that spicy chip and was like that, maybe that would do it. Maybe.
What was the face?
Yeah, we'll capture
screen
it later.
grab.
We'll turn that into a meme, I'm sure, later. How about you, Doug?
I think this is really interesting because if you would have just asked me blindly, I would have assumed this mattered more than it obviously does. We've got enough data to suggest that no one really cares about this, right? So I think it's interesting, but at the same time, I can also agree that I don't care who Travis Kelce's dating. If he's some super ultra famous celebrity, that's not going to make me go buy his cards. The same way I don't care, how often someone's on TV or in the booth or on a post-game show, that's not going to make me buy their cards. I think it helps for overall just awareness of the individual, and I do think popularity or likability matters. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about likability. You mentioned Desmond Bain, and my mind was somewhere else, and I was talking about Dylan Brooks the whole time.
So the people in the comments were right.
No, they were
people in
close.
the comments were right. Okay.
Man, maybe I hadn't heard this before. I was just racking my. I've never heard this before. Bain's a good guy.
Yeah, he is a good guy.
Yeah.
I blame both of you guys for not calling me out on it. We could have cut and refilmed. But anyway, I was talking about Dylan Brooks this whole time and talking about how unlikable he is. And I feel the same way about situations like this. I think likability matters, and that's maybe where the impact might lie. People might, now that they have so much exposure to Travis Kelce through media and through his podcast, he's become a bigger personality, more likable figure, and I think that will help him. But overall, as we can tell, the people that are getting exposed to him for the first time, they're not going to go out and buy a Travis Kelce card. They won't even know where to start.
Yeah.
They might not even know cards exist.
The Swifties want to wear his jersey.
Yeah.
Right.
But they may not go buy one of his
Certainly doesn't
cards.
hurt his value.
I'm telling you though, the dual Travis Kelce Taylor Swift card, all of a sudden the Swifties will be into the cards. They'll all be into the cards.
That happened.
Well, we got to expedite that. Let's get that one out to the printers right now. All right, guys, we had some big news this last week from the National. They have announced that their 2026 location, which was up for a vote, is going to be in Chicago, which means that this next year, 2024, we have the National in Cleveland. But then in 2025, we have it in Chicago. In 2026, we have it in Chicago. And it's believed by many that in 2027, it will be back in Chicago again. Now, did the National, maybe some people are cheering them on because they didn't go to Atlantic City in 2026, but they did have the third option on the ballot, which was Atlanta, our hometown right here. Did the National make a huge, epic, monumental mistake by going back to Chicago again and by not going to Atlanta in 2026? Doug, I'm going to start with you on this one. What do you think?
I don't think Chicago's fine. It's somewhat centrally located between the coast, East and West Coast. If they fix the air conditioning, I don't really have any problem with it. Atlanta has, a crazy busy airport. We had that going for us, but that's really about it, in my opinion. I do think it's really weird that Atlantic City finished second, though. It makes me wonder what the voters' priorities are. Because to me, that just screams, we just want a free booth. Because I'm pretty sure that was on the table for Atlantic City. You don't have to pay for your booth there. So I'm worried about what the priorities are. I'd like to see that. I'd like to talk to dealers and understand what went into their thought process when they started voting for this. Because I am worried that maybe they're not looking at the big picture and, having actual people attend this event. They're just looking at, can I get a table for free, or whatever the logistics are there. So that'd be my biggest question. But I'm fine with Chicago. It doesn't. By the way,
I think you're tremendously underselling this beautiful city of Atlanta. The National in Atlanta would have been downtown, right next to the College Football Hall of Fame. That would have been cool. You would have had the trade night potentially at the College Football Hall of Fame on their big football field. That would have been awesome to do that. You're right next to the Georgia Aquarium, which is the largest aquarium in the Western Hemisphere. You got all kinds of great hotels and bars and restaurants downtown. You're right next to the basketball stadium. You're right next to the football stadium. It's all right there. Come to Atlanta. Come to Atlanta. It's beautiful, beautiful city, beautiful place to be. You agree with me, Teapot? Should have come to Atlanta?
I think when I'm walking around with cards full of cases full of expensive cards, I'm thinking safety first. And Atlantic City made me very uncomfortable. People got mugged. I had to worry about falling on needles. I couldn't get into my hotel room with the card key. So for me, anywhere but Atlantic City is a huge win. Chicago, I had literally written down what Doug said, which is, Chicago's fine. I like the city of Chicago. It's outside of it. It's close to the airport. A lot of good things working in its favor. I will say this year with the new expanded square footage, the footprint, I felt like I was in the final level of Super Mario. It was like, hey, how do I get to the restroom? It's like, go to booth 1693, take the first tube down, okay, duck a Koopa Troopa and a fireball, go 3 more tubes on the left, and then you still end up with a whatnot breaker yelling in your face. You're like, I just need to go to the bathroom. How do I get there? It was very confusing. There were entire corners of the show I didn't even know existed. People were like, didn't you get your free stuff over there? Didn't know it existed. So that was a little bit confusing. I don't know what the floor plan would be like here in Atlanta. I'm not as familiar. I'd like to see some flexibility, and I'd like to stay here and not have to travel, but Chicago is fine.
Chicago does have Gibson's. Gibson's got a good ribeye. I gotta say, Gibson's.
Shout out.
Gibson. Doug doesn't
Shout
know
out
anything
to
about this.
Justin.
Doug's salty. Doug's
out
going to
to
be salty
Justin.
for the next 2 years. He didn't get to go to Gibson's.
I had Chili's to go in the airport while you guys were eating.
Justin will
Gibson's
Doug will get some Gibson's.
Shout out, Judd. Gibson's got a good ribeye.
Shout out, Chili's
Gibson's
to go.
got a good ribeye. All right, guys, tell us what you want us to talk about in next week's Cards on the Table. Leave us a YouTube comment with the topic, and we will talk about it. And in the meantime, give us a subscribe, give us a like, and go get the new version of Market Movers. Download the Market Movers app on your phone. Try out sales history. You're going to love it. Until next time, we'll see you. Take care.